If they can come for me, if they can come for Donald Trump, be careful, they will come for you. If we don't control our government, their government will control us. If we don't control all three branches of our government, legislative, executive, and judicial, their government will put some of us, like me and Steve Bannon, in prison and control the rest of us.
Michael Popok, Legal AF. Guess who's getting on the Republican National Convention stage? Peter Navarro, fresh out of serving 4 months in Miami in prison for contempt of Congress related to his refusal to turn over documents or provide information to the Jan 6 committee. That's a badge of honor in MAGA world. He's taken the stage at the Republican National Convention, nominating Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Because who else would you want on the stage with somebody that purports to be somebody who has a serious chance of winning the presidency? A felon who did his time in prison in order to honor his cult leader, Donald Trump. I mean, it's just, I joked in an earlier podcast and on a hot take that this has become like the rogues gallery, where Donald Trump is just strutting around along with others in his inner circle, many of which are in jail, like Steve Bannon, who delayed so long he won't be able to make an appearance at the Republican National Committee unless he FaceTimes from prison, which I wouldn't put it past this organization or Donald Trump or MAGA at all. And Peter Navarro just happened to have his sentence down in Miami time out for him to pop up on the stage. Now, Peter Navarro was one of the architects of the Green Bay sweep and of the fake elector scheme implemented by John Eastman himself, Rudy Giuliani, Mike Roman, and Ken Chesebro to try to have Mike Pence not recognize the duly authorized electors and those that had signed proper electoral certificates, and instead recognize the fake elector certificates, making Donald Trump the president, or throwing that confusion and that mess over to the state delegations to pick Donald Trump. That's what was the plan. And the Jan 6 committee wanted to get to the bottom of that plan. And so they, you'll recall, subpoenaed for testimony under oath and for documents Peter Navarro. He refused. He told Judge Maida, the judge that presided over his case, that he was exercising executive privilege because Donald Trump told him to. But Donald Trump never appeared in the case, never intervened in the case, never testified in the case, never provided a deposition or an affidavit in the case to support any type of argument for the exercise of executive privilege or any other type of privilege, attorney or otherwise. And so a jury very quickly convicted Peter Navarro of his actions. He took an appeal to the D.C. Court of Appeals, and they affirmed the conviction. He tried an appeal to the United States Supreme Court, and they rejected it. And so off to jail he went. Judge Maida said, off to jail you go. He put him in Miami. I don't know if that was coincidence or not, a request by Peter Navarro. And one of the people that showed up at the detention center in Miami to visit him was one Donald J. Trump. And now as a reward for not cooperating, from not being, I feel like I'm talking about the mafia here, the organized crime, not being a stoolie, not being a rat, going to jail for your godfather. He's being rewarded with a plum speaking assignment and time slot at the Republican National Convention. I mean, if this is how you want your next president to operate, then I've got a candidate for you. He's going to not only sweep himself back into power on the heels of this shooting in Pennsylvania, but he's going to sweep this rogues gallery of other people along with him. You've been convicted, you're going to get a pardon. You've been sentenced, it's going to be commuted. You served your time, come back in and work in the White House. I'm looking at you, Steve Bannon, Mike Flynn, Paul Manafort, Peter Navarro, Mike Roman, Rudy Giuliani, Jeff Clark, they're all going to get swept back in with Donald Trump. And if you're okay with that, I'm not speaking to the main audience here, I'm speaking to others who may be tuning in. And if you're not okay with that, then don't vote for Donald Trump. If you don't think it's okay to parade around people who flout our laws, who violate our laws, who are against law and order and the rule of law, and then you know who to vote for. I'm appalled. It's disgusting to see people, it's not like he served his time and his debt to society. He just got out of jail on Wednesday. He just got out of jail on Wednesday, and now he's going to end up on the stage alongside Donald Trump. Any other party that had values and character and morals wouldn't let a convicted felon fresh out of a stint in the big pen in the penitentiary anywhere near the presidential candidate. But to MAGA, where the world is turned upside down, where we're in the upside down world, it's a good thing, not a bad thing that he went to jail. Are these the morals and values that we're teaching our young people in this country? How are we ever going to get people to respect law, courts, judges, the FBI, investigators, any of the other pillars of our society, when the guy who's heading one of the parties doesn't do that and signals to the world and just thumbs his nose at proper decorum, morals, and values? And then in the same breath says they're a party of unity. Unity for who? Felons and non-felons? Is that the unity we're talking about? Attention all criminals, you can have a job in the White House. That's what it seems. This is where we seem to be right now with this party. The Democrats ran out on a rail, a then current senator, because an old picture of him when he was a comedian with another comedian next to him, another entertainer next to him, they didn't like the way that picture looked. And that was the end of his career. So how do you compare the parties? The Democrats are busy trying to cannibalize themselves. It's so much hand-wringing. It's so much wailing and gnashing of teeth. So much heat with no light coming out of my own party. Republicans, you can be indicted, unindicted co-conspirator, indicted co-conspirator, convicted co-conspirator, serve your time, and you're all welcome back into the big tent of the Republican MAGA party. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And the people that were this close and should be serving time in jail already for what they did to try to stop the peaceful transfer of power, they're going to be rewarded with even better jobs this time around. Attorney General Rudy Giuliani, how's that sound? Attorney General Jeff Clark, how's that sound? Supreme Court Justice Aileen Cannon. Think about it. You're not just voting for the person at the top of the ticket. You're voting for their entire administration, their entire approach to governing, their entire approach to foreign policy, domestic policy, the United States Supreme Court, civil rights, women's rights. It's everything. It's not just, there's an old line by Bill Clinton, which it's starting to annoy me, which is, it's better to be wrong and strong than weak and right. How about being strong and right? How about that? I'd vote for that. We'll continue to follow how many ex-cons and current cons end up on the stage for the Republican National Convention and end up, I think Donald Trump should be forced to declare who his cabinet would be if he were elected. It's not uncommon at this stage in an election especially coming off the convention, for them to talk about their cabinet. Talk about your cabinet. Tell the American people who you're going to have in your government and how many of them you've either pardoned, commuted, given clemency to, they've been convicted, went to jail, lost their bar licenses. The American people have a right to know. And if this is any indication, the lineup at the Republican National Convention, you're not going to like this cabinet lineup. I think he should be forced to do it. I think Joe Biden should say, you know who my cabinet is. You know who my vice president is, who my big four cabinet heads are: defense, state, treasury, and justice. You know those. You tell me who yours are. Call them out. Give the American people that information so they know what they are voting for. Continue to follow it on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF right here on the MeidasTouch Network. Free subscribe. Help them get to 3 million before the election. We're an independent network without outside investors. And then join me on Wednesdays and Saturdays for a podcast we call Legal AF, the podcast. We curate the top 4 or 5 stories at the intersection of law and politics. And we bring it to you right here and then on audio podcast platforms of your choice. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popak reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.